Hey guys, here are a set of notes we're going to look at today. You're going to use these notes to help you solve or answer, an exit ticket that I will post right after this. So today we're going to talk about populations and samples. So I'm going to read through some of these examples. We'll look at the questions. As I go through, I'm going to remove these little red boxes and that'll show the answer. Now make sure you look at the vocab words. Each one of those are red and bold, and you're going to need to know those for the exit ticket. And if we end up taking a quiz over this stuff, you're going to need to know those questions for those also. So let's go and get started. Example 1, understanding populations and samples. The 2,468 registered voters in Morgantown are voting on whether to build a new football stadium. Morgan and her friends really want the town to vote in favor of the new stadium. How can they determine how the voters will vote before the day of the vote? So Morgan and her friends, they want to know how the vote's going to go. So let's think about this. They want to know, of all their town, the 2,468 people, how many people are going to vote yes or no. So one way to think about this is Morgan and her friends could ask every single person, every registered voter, or the entire population of voters in town how they plan to vote. Okay, so this is our key, the entire population. And that population is every registered voter. So all 2,468. So our first keyword here is population. A population is the total number of objects, people, animals, plants, etc., from which data can be collected. So in this case, the population is everyone that could possibly vote. All those people could vote either yes or no. So she could ask all of those people. But the next question says, is doing this possible? Now, depending on how much time she has, does she have enough time to ask every single person? Now, if they have a month, 2 months, maybe they could ask all 2,000 people, but if they have a day, that's not possible. So what she's going to have to do is do something else. Right? Surveying the 2,468 people takes a long time. They may not be able to survey the entire population of voters. So what could they do instead? Could they ask part of the people, half the people, a third of the people? Well, we have a specific name for that, right? Morgan and her friends could ask a subset or a sample of the registered voters in town how they plan to vote, right? Surveying a sample of voters does not take as long and is more reasonable to do. Morgan and her friends would be able to ask 100 or 200 people. So obviously, she's not going to be able to ask all the people that live in the town, but she could ask a sample or a part of. So that brings us to our next vocab word. A sample is a subset or part of the entire population. So a sample is a part of the population. So if the population is the whole thing, a sample is just a piece of it. So if we think of it as a pie, the pie would be the population. A slice of pie would be the sample. Generally, you can know how a pie is going to taste by just eating a slice of it, right? So if we take a sample, the sample will tell us how the entire population is going to vote. So next question, go to the next page. So before I move on, a sample is a part of the population. The population is the whole thing, all 2,000 people. A sample could be 100 people or 200 people or more, depending on how much time Morgan and her friends have. So moving on. Example 2, describing a representative sample. So number 4 says Morgan decides to survey a sample of the town's voting population. How can she know that the survey results from the sample of voters represent the position of the entire town's population? So what she wants to know is that little sample that she is asking, do those 100 people, do they represent all of the people? That's like me saying, as you guys as my class, do your opinions, are those the same opinions that everyone else at Fostoria hold? Are your opinions the same as, say, the high schoolers? And do you speak for what they think? So if I ask you what your guys' favorite song was, would that be indicative of every single student's favorite song, right? So what Morgan needs to do, she needs to take a random sample, okay? So Morgan can survey a random sample or a randomly selected group of voters to make sure her results are a representative sample of the position of the entire town, right? So that gives us to two key vocab words here. In a random sample, each member of the population has an equal chance of being included. So what that means is she's not just going to focus on, say, one neighborhood of people. She's going to pick people from random parts of the entire town, because all those different parts are going to have different opinions, and that's what she wants. She wants the most varied part of each person's belief. So if I wanted to know what the favorite song was of the entire school, I would pick people out from each grade level and ask them, not just, say, seventh graders. So this random sample tends to be a representative sample, right? And that's what she wants, right? A representative sample accurately reflects the characteristics of the entire population. So if she gets this random sample and it's representative, that means those 100 or 200 people that she's asking are going to represent the thoughts and feelings of the entire town, right? She's just not going to key in on one part of town, right? She wants the thoughts and opinions from everyone, and that gives a representative sample of the entire town, not just this part of town, this neighborhood, that group of people. She wants the entire population, okay? So moving on. Well, how would Morgan generate a random sample of people? How do you get random people in your sample? So question 5, how can Morgan generate a random sample of the town's voting population? So she can follow the following steps. So the first thing you need to do, right, if you want to identify or gather a random sample of people, you need to define what is your population. What is the group that you want to know about, right? When I ask you what Fostoria's favorite song is, well, my population would be grades, let's say 12th through 7th. So the Fostoria High School junior high building, right? So that's grades 12 through 7. That would be my population. Now for Morgan and her friends, the population would be all of the registered voters. And if we look back to page 1, okay, that would be 2,468 people. So that would be her population, would be those 2,400 people, all of the people that can vote. Now what she needs to do next is select a sample size. So we said earlier that it's not reasonable for her to select all those 2,400 people, just like it wouldn't be reasonable for me to ask every single student that is in our building, right? She needs to select a smaller sample. So in this case, Morgan plans to survey 100 registered voters. That's going to be her sample. So that, for me, if we wanted to know what the favorite song was, maybe I want to ask 10 people from each grade, okay? Or 20 people from each grade. So once you choose your sample size, so we have step 1 here, step 2, step 3, to make a list of all of those people. So I'm sure she can acquire all of the people that live in her town, okay? And what she's going to do next is she's going to do step 4. She's going to give each one of those people a number, 1 through 2,400. And the 5th step is she's going to generate a list of random numbers to select. So if we think of like bingo, where there's all these numbers in a little jar, she's just going to pull one of them out, and that's random. And she's going to pick 100 numbers out of some sort of system, and that will be random. Okay, she's not selecting just these people or those people. She's randomly, it's like putting numbers into a hat and pulling numbers out of it. So she's going to do those following things. And that's how she would generate a random sample, and one that's hopefully representative of the town. Now, the one thing that she wants to make sure she wants to avoid is she wants unwanted samples. So what do we mean by unwanted samples? So what we're talking about is she wants to avoid samples that could include people that have the same opinions or biases, right? Morgan wants a sample of different opinions and beliefs. So anytime you want to collect a sample, what you don't want to do is just have one bias. So if we go back and look at my example of asking what the favorite song was, if I just asked all of the students in, say, my 8th period class, okay, they're all the same age, they're all in the same class, they're all in the same grade, you guys might have a similar opinion than, say, if I asked a 12th grade class. They might have a different opinion. So your opinions and beliefs are going to be different than what theirs are. So if I just ask you guys, you might be biased towards one thing. So we want to ask as many people as possible so we do not have bias. So a biased sample is a sample that is connected in such a way that some members of the intended population are less likely to be included than others, right? If she was to say, ask people from the same neighborhood, okay, they might have one opinion or belief, right? People tend to live by the same types of people. So if she only asked this neighborhood, they could all feel the same thing. A neighborhood on the other side of town could think of a different thing, right? So we want to avoid a biased sample, right? These samples tend to skew towards different biases, opinions, or beliefs, okay? So if we recall our vocab words from today and the things that we need to know, okay, we need to know what a population is. That is the entire thing, all of the people in the town, as many people as possible that we want to know the opinion of, okay? We want to know what a sample is. A sample is a part of the population, a subset, okay? We also need to know what a random sample is. We're randomly selecting people, okay? And those random samples tend to be representative samples. That means samples that represent the opinions of the entire part. And lastly, we want to avoid biased samples, samples of people that all feel the same way. They might have the same biases, opinions, or beliefs. So rewatch this a couple of times. You'll use this set of notes to answer the 6-1 exit ticket. And make sure you know what these vocab words are. You're going to need to know a couple of those for the exit ticket. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me through any means that you need. Thank you and enjoy.